3 true creepy Let's Not Meet stories, narrated by Creep Reads. In all of these stories, it seems I'll be playing a female. Just an FYI. Bubbles by Amethyst Haze. This happened in 1998. The summer that I was 4, I was finally allowed to go to the playground down the street from the house by myself if one of my parents was in the front lawn. We lived in a newer suburban area, which was made up of basically all young families with kids, so they figured it would be safe, and I took advantage of this every chance I got. One July afternoon, my mom was cleaning out her car. I was bored of watching her clean, so I asked to go to the playground, and after some prodding on my part, she reluctantly agreed. So I skipped down the street, stopping to pet a neighbor's cat, her name was Muffin, before arriving at the park. I climbed on the jungle gym for a while, just enjoying the warm weather and humming to myself, until I heard a man clear his throat. I turned around and shielded my eyes from the sun, trying to get a good look at him, but with how bright the sun was, I could only really make out his silhouette. He was standing at least 30 feet away on a small hill, which at the time had a wide metal slice coming down from it. "Hi, little girl," he said, trying to sound friendly. "You look like Bubbles. Do you like Bubbles from the Powerpuff Girls? You look just like her." I nervously said that I did, and he continued to talk and tried to coax me up the hill. "I think Bubbles is the cutest. Did your mommy help you with those pigtails? Come here and let me see them. I have some Powerpuff Girls toys in my car. You might like some of them and take them home. You should come with me and see if you want any." I continued to refuse all his offers, and I became increasingly uncomfortable. I remember mentioning that my stomach hurt and that I should go, and in retrospect, it was probably panic causing me pain. He didn't make any attempts to move down from the hill, but I noticed his hand moving up and down in his pocket and something straining against the front of his jeans. At the time, I obviously didn't know anything about what he was doing, but I had a strong gut feeling that it was something very bad. I was very blonde at that age, though as I got older, my hair turned dark brown. When I was 4, it was basically platinum blonde. I was also wearing a light blue summer dress and little black shoes, so I suppose I did look very similar to the cartoon character, but every time he called me Bubbles, it made me want to vomit. "Come up here, little Bubbles. I have a trick to show you. If you sit on my lap and we go down the slide together, we can go extra fast," he told me. He was talking very quickly, almost in a panic. He kept repeating that I should come down to his car to see all the toys he had. I was frozen on top of the jungle gym, and I just kept repeating, "No, and I don't want to." Suddenly, his voice got louder and took on a tinge of annoyance. "Come on, little girl. I haven't got all day. Do you want the toys or not? There's lots of them, probably more than all the toys in your home put together. I'm parked just over there." He started to walk down the hill slowly, still touching himself through his jeans. When he got base of the jungle gym, he was whispering under his breath that I was such a pretty child, and that we'd have so much fun together. This is when I got a better look at him. He was probably in his later 20s or early 30s, and he actually didn't look like a stereotypical creep. He actually looked pretty respectable. He looked like most of the young fathers around the neighborhood. He was white, with neat dark hair and dark eyes. The worst thing about him was the wild look in his eyes as he continued to touch himself and ambled toward the jungle gym. I stood still, frozen in fear as he approached the jungle gym and stopped a little to try and look up my dress. When I backed up instinctively, he said he just wanted to see my little shoes, and that he thought they were very nice. Then, he reached for my ankle. My sock folded down under his grasp, and I was able to slip away. I scrambled down the monkey bars on the other side and ran down the street to my house. I only looked back once, and when I did, he was standing at the entrance to the playground. His hand was now entirely down his pants. I got back to my front yard, and as I tearfully explained what happened, I saw a van tear away from behind the playground. and he was gone. We never heard anything about that man ever again, but I really hope he never got his hands on any other little kids. I'm in university now, but I still have nightmares about it sometimes. I remember I was too upset at the time and had this weird sickly feeling in my stomach, so I couldn't even eat my dinner that night. After this happened, I got the same feeling in my stomach whenever the Powerpuff Girls came on TV. Even though I still loved watching it, that momentary panic hit me every time. So creepy pedophile at the playground, I hope I never have to come in contact with you again. Offered me $2,000 to have dinner with him. I was 14, by Bicky's Mirth. I was a teenager, about 14 or maybe 15, and really oblivious to what was going on. This is in Australia. I used to work at a small independent supermarket near my home. Always worked the same 2 to 3 shifts, alternating each week. Tuesday night, Saturday night, Sunday afternoon. There was usually only 2 of us at the checkout at any time, with a supervisor roaming around somewhere, and maybe staff replacing stock during the day. The area the store was located had a noticeable Southern European population from migrants back in the early 1900s. It was near the coastline, and the cheapest house in the suburb wouldn't be far below 500,000 Australian dollars, so it housed quite a few cashed up families. As a teenager, I went through puberty quite early, had the curves in the right places, quite busty, and had close to white blonde hair. I enjoyed customer service, so I was always friendly with customers. I would help out beyond what was required and always had a smile on my face. I was never taken for older than what I was, because I still looked and behaved youthful in every other regard, so I've never been able to take this any other way than an old man with ill intentions towards me. I think this old man would have been at least in his 60s, olive-skinned, wrinkly, and light grey hair, with some dark streaks still in places. He was a semi-regular, always bought his pack of cigarettes which were kept on the wall behind a small counter of cash registers. I never noticed anything out of the ordinary with him for a long time. He looked like many of the other men that came through. After a while, I noticed him coming in more and more on my shifts. We wouldn't talk much to begin with, as he was quiet. He just asked for his pack of ciggies and off he went. But as he came in more frequently, he began to chat. Just little things like, how was my day? How long have I worked here? Still nothing that rang my alarms. Even when things started getting a little bit weird, I still didn't recognize what was happening. He would leave his change. Whilst this is normal in Australia if it's less than $1, he would leave $5, $10, a note of whatever I gave back to him. I dismissed this as him just having too much money. It also paid for my ice cream at the end of the shift, so I was happy. One day, he left some gems on my counter. He said they were really valuable. Rubies, sapphires, emeralds, all real. This is where things started going downhill. My colleague was watching from the next register over, looking all confused. I managed an, thanks, with a bit less enthusiasm than normal. Seriously, I just wanted ice cream money again. Gems went in the bin. At this point, my colleagues took notice of what was happening, and I realized that this might be a little more creepy than just the cashed up old dude who didn't want his change. The registers were to the immediate right to the entrance doors, and the turnstile to get into the shop itself was to the immediate left. This enabled us to generally see him before he saw us, as he would go left straight away. My colleagues began alerting me to when he entered, and if I wasn't noticed by him, I would conveniently use that time for a quick toilet break. He was never in the store for a few minutes due to only buying the cigarettes, so my lack of being at the registers was not noticed by management. I don't think he ever worked out my shift schedule, as he would come in at all times of the day. I know this because he began asking if I was working every now and then. When I took over from day shift staff, I occasionally got told a man was asking about me. This didn't happen frequently, so whilst I could hear those alarm bells, I still didn't react until management. Those alarm bells did eventually start going nuts, about 9 PM on a night shift when I was alone at the registers and the store was empty. I can't remember where my shift colleague was, The old man came up to the register, and I couldn't do my usual ninja out the back technique, as I was the only person on register. I can't remember most of the conversation, but the general plot of it was this. "You're a beautiful girl. I love your smile. You should let me take you out to dinner. I will pay you $2,000. Thankfully, my colleague came back to save me from trying to form a response to this. I had already finished this transaction, so I took up a conversation with my colleague and busied myself with something further down the counter. He left after hovering around a short while longer. After that encounter, he came back in a few days later when I wasn't on shift, but was due in that night. We sold flowers. He bought a bunch, asked if I was on shift, was told I wasn't, then gave it to the girl who served him, saying something like, "Oh well, you're nice to me, so please accept this bunch of flowers," and then left. My shift overlapped with the girl who was given the flowers, and our supervisor was with us at the registers. She told me what happened, and I explained to her what had happened earlier in the week on my shift. Our supervisor must have overheard, as she quickly interrupted and made me repeat my story. I gave her the full rundown of the events, what he looked like, and everything else I could think of. After a quick scolding for not reporting this to management or security, she left us to it. I'm not sure what happened because I never saw him again after that. We did have security cameras, so maybe management went through the footage that day to identify him. At the time, I was so oblivious to why the situation was so creepy. I had a gut feeling along the way that it was weird, but it never occurred to me that it was serious enough to report it to management. Whilst I didn't like my supervisor at the time, whenever I think back on this, I wish I could find her and thank her profusely for looking out for her staff. I Had a Fake Me Tailing Me Online for 6 Months by Bicky's Mirth. Around 13 years of age, I became addicted to instant messaging, usually MSN or the chat rooms on WinMX. I wasn't friendless or weird, but I just preferred communicating with people online, which often led to striking up online long-distance friendships. Most of the time, it was completely harmless, but looking back on some of the conversations I had with people older than me leaves me feeling I was a bit naive. But this encounter was of a different ilk. At age 15, I had my regulars I talked to, and one of them was my real-life friend, John, who knew my family quite well. I'm female, he was male. I had dated him when I was younger, but dated in the form of no physical touching, and me dumping him over MSN. The closest we ever got to intimacy was me taking a topless photo of myself for him, but never sending it because I was a, rightfully so, chicken. It was weird for a while, but we eventually became best friends. One day after I'd signed in, John began talking to me as though we had already been part way through a conversation. I asked what he was on about, which confused him as he supposedly had just been talking to me. He copied and pasted the conversation before I had signed in. From my account, someone had been talking to him, using my distinct tone of writing, punctuation, words and emotes used, etc. I panicked, called John, and explained that it wasn't me he had been talking to. We both didn't know what to do, so we just hoped it wouldn't happen again and ignored it. Maybe a week or two later, the same thing happened again, and then it started happening with multiple people. This fake me was having conversations with the people I talked to the most in my account, from my own account, and they had absolutely no idea it was not me. I'm assuming this person could read my conversations and had been mimicking me. John and I decided it would be a good idea to create a new account and re-add the people I was closest with and ditch the rest. It worked for a little while, but I think the fake me must have realized I had switched accounts because not long after that, the same thing started happening to my new account. Again, I created new accounts, and this person somehow kept getting into them. I didn't want to tell my parents as I thought they might take my internet access away, and at the time, the thought of that made me feel sick. So I decided on a different tactic. Instead of trying to escape the fake me by creating different accounts, I quickly added my old account once I made a new one. I have no idea what this was meant to achieve. I think I was more curious at this point because I didn't see any danger. Everyone I had added knew what was happening by now, and fake me hadn't done any damage just by talking to people. Anyhow, I ended up in conversation with fake me. I can't remember the details, but it was actually really amusing to start off with. I was pretty witty, and I think I was entertaining to fake me because we got into banter, held conversations, and whatever else. Fake me stopped getting into my new account and, instead, just focused on talking to me. All this carries on probably close to half a year. Toward the end of it, I was 16 now. I began seeing a guy, Luke, who was a few years older than me. Fake me took interest in this and began targeting my conversations with him instead. It got to the point where he would actually stop talking to me and be talking to fake me instead, despite knowing it wasn't me he was talking to. This annoyed me, so with the help of John, we decided to try and cut off my old accounts by using a different computer, as we were assuming this person was getting into my accounts via keylogging or something. So John brought his laptop around, I created a new account, and changed all the passwords of my old accounts. He left the laptop with me a couple of days so I could use it, and shortly into those few days, fake me managed to get into my damn account again. At this point, I realized it was a much more serious issue. Fake me could get into any computer connected to our internet, and it suddenly wasn't amusing anymore. Apologizing profusely to John, luckily fake me didn't touch any of his stuff. I think I lost it a little bit and abused fake me, and by a little bit, I mean swearing, crying, generally carrying on like an idiot because we all know the internet bullies react so well to that kind of behavior. After my outburst, fake me turned malicious. Fake me started locking me out of my accounts this time, started harassing my friends more, pretending to be me and abusing them. Some fake me flirted really graphically with. I still didn't tell my parents for the fear of them removing my internet access and losing my precious chat rooms. It all came to a head when fake me found the previously mentioned naked picture of me and sent it to all my contacts. I had completely forgotten about it and must have left a copy on my hard drive. Luckily, I didn't have many contacts due to losing most from my ever-changing accounts, but still, it was horrible and had me feeling so ashamed. I know I shouldn't have taken the photo in the first damn place, but for it to be sent around without my knowledge left me feeling absolutely sick. Lord knows where the photo had ended up on the internet. At this point, John decided to take things into his own hands and told my dad. He left the part about the photo, but the rest was detailed. My laptop was taken away, the cable for the household computer was hidden, and I couldn't use it unless I was supervised. I don't know what he did about securing our network, but it never happened again after that. I was stupid and blamed John for telling my dad, but in reality, he did what I should have done from the start. I put my family at risk because I couldn't deal with not having my chat rooms anymore.